All right, buckling up for a deep dive today.
Oh, yeah.
Into the heart of every vehicle, the combustion engine.
The beating heart of most cars on the road.
Exactly. And we've gotten a lot of requests from listeners to really get into how this works.
Sure.
So we've got our piles of books and articles here.
Absolutely.
Ready to go.
It's fascinating stuff.
Yeah, because I think for a lot of people, we get into our cars, we turn the key or, press the button these days.
Push a button.
And magic happens.
That's magic.
But we don't really think about what's happening.
It's a black box for a lot of people.
Right, exactly.
And it's funny you should say magic because it is kind of like controlled explosions under the hood.
Yeah, that's a good point. So,
like hundreds of them per minute.
How do you even begin to control an explosion? Like, I imagine like a piston.
You're on the right track.
And a cylinder.
Yeah.
And that's about the extent.
So picture a cylinder, like a tall, narrow can.
Okay.
And inside that can, there's a piston that moves up and down.
Right.
And instead of you pushing that piston with your hand, imagine a mini explosion forcing it down.
Wow.
That's basically what's going on inside your engine.
Okay.
Hundreds of times a minute.
Hundreds of times a minute. So then how is that?
It's incredible.
How do you translate that into movement?
That brings us to the four-stroke cycle.
Okay.
This is where the magic happens, right?
All right.
It's a dance, a carefully choreographed dance of intake, compression, combustion, and exhaust.
So it's like it's almost like breathing, right?
It is like breathing. The engine's breathing.
Okay.
It starts with the intake stroke. Engine inhales a mix of air and fuel.
Like we breathe in oxygen.
Exactly. Like we breathe in oxygen.
Right.
Then compression.
Okay.
The piston moves up, squeezing that air-fuel mixture into a tiny, super concentrated space.
So it's like holding your breath.
Like holding your breath, but way more intense.
Right.
And then here comes a boom combustion.
Okay.
At the exact right moment, a spark plug ignites the mixture.
Okay.
Causing a powerful explosion.
Wow.
That forces the piston back down.
And that's what makes it go.
It's like that satisfying release when you exhale.
Oh.
Except in this case, the exhale is the exhaust stroke, where the burned gases are pushed out to make way for the next cycle.
So it's constantly like breathing in.
It's a continuous cycle.
Breathing out.
Exactly.
And hundreds of times a minute.
Hundreds of times a minute.
To make the car move.
That's what's propelling you down the road.
Wow. And that's just crazy that it even works.
It's a symphony of engineering. Every single part.
Yeah.
Every valve, every spark plug has to be working in perfect harmony.
So are all those parts where multi-valve engines come into play?
You're thinking in the right direction.
Okay.
It's all about that airflow. Like if you're running a marathon.
You need a lot of air.
You need a lot of oxygen to fuel those muscles.
Right.
A multi-valve engine is like giving your car bigger lungs.
Okay.
Instead of just 2 valves per cylinder, one for intake, one for exhaust. Some engines have 3, 4, even 5 valves.
Wow, so more air.
Maximizing that airflow.
Power.
Exactly.
Air,
more power.
So more valves, more air, more power. But it can't just be about cramming in as much air and fuel as possible.
And like I was saying, timing is everything.
Yeah.
If the timing's off, it's not going to work.
And that's where the timing belt comes in.
The timing belt, exactly.
Because I always thought that was just like to make sure the engine, like, I don't know.
Yeah, it sounds deceptively simple.
Yeah.
But it's so crucial.
Okay.
It's like the conductor of an orchestra.
Okay.
Making sure everything is synchronized.
So it's connecting the
crankshaft, which is being spun by those exploding pistons, to the camshaft, which controls when the valves open and close.
Wow.
If that belt breaks.
Yeah.
Your engine's not going anywhere.
That's not good.
No.
All right, so we've got the air and fuel mixing, the spark plug igniting, pistons pumping, the timing belt keeping everything in sync.
A lot going on in there.
But all of that must generate a ton of heat.
A tremendous amount of heat.
And friction.
Friction.
So what keeps it all? How does it not just melt?
Well, that's where the engine oil comes in.
Okay.
Think of it like the lifeblood of your car.
Okay.
It's reducing the friction between all those moving parts.
So it's lubricating everything.
Lubricating, exactly.
Okay.
But it's also helping to cool things down.
So that's why it's so important to get your oil changed.
Absolutely.
Because it's not just about it getting, like, dirty.
Right. Well, it does get dirty. You change the oil.
Yeah.
It's doing this crucial job of picking up all these tiny metal particles.
That's what I was wondering.
As those engine parts wear down.
So they shed little, like, metal bits.
Microscopic, but they're there.
Okay.
And they end up in the oil.
Right.
That's what the oil filter's for,
Oh, okay.
to trap all that stuff.
I get all that gunk out.
Otherwise, it would just be circulating in there, causing damage.
And that's not good.
Not good.
Okay, so we've covered oil, but what about keeping the engine itself cool?
Right. The cooling system, equally important.
The radiator, all...
Radiator, water pump, coolant, it's all connected.
And how does that work?
Basically, it's a closed loop.
Okay.
You've got the water pump circulating coolant through the engine block, and that coolant's absorbing all that heat.
Like a spun.
Exactly. Then that hot coolant travels through the radiator,
Okay.
gets cooled down by air flowing through those fins.
So that's what that sound is when you can hear the fan going.
Sometimes you can hear the fan kicking on. Yep.
To cool down the radiator.
Exactly. And then the cycle repeats.
It's a whole system.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
It really is. It's amazing how much thought goes into, like, every little thing.
Right.
From the smallest valve to, like, the whole system to cool the engine down.
It's a symphony of engineering.
It is. It's like an ecosystem.
Well, speaking of ecosystems, let's talk about what fuels this whole operation.
Okay.
Because you mentioned earlier the difference between petrol and diesel.
Yeah.
Both internal combustion, but how they ignite the fuel is actually quite different.
That's a good point, because I've always wondered, because they always used to say that diesel was just for, like...
For trucks.
Yeah, for trucks.
Rigs.
But now you see, like, diesel cars.
You do, more and more.
So, like, what's the difference?
Think of it this way. Petrol needs a spark to ignite.
Okay.
Like you're lighting a match.
Okay.
Diesel, on the other hand,
Yeah.
ignites under pressure.
Under pressure.
More like those fire starter squares you use for camping.
Oh.
In a diesel engine, the air-fuel mixture is compressed to such a high degree that it spontaneously combusts.
Wow. So it just, like, goes off.
Pretty much, yeah.
That's wild.
It creates its own little explosion in there.
And it doesn't need a spark plug.
Not in the same way that a petrol engine does, no.
Wow.
And because of that higher compression ratio, diesel engines, they tend to be more fuel efficient.
Really?
Especially at lower speeds.
Oh.
And they tend to have more torque, more pulling power.
Interesting.
So if you're towing heavy loads, that's where diesel really shines.
So it's all about trade-offs.
It is.
Petrol for that quick spark, diesel for efficiency and torque.
Precisely.
But now, what about all this stuff you hear about, like these futuristic fuels?
Right.
Electricity, hydrogen, even things like algae biofuel.
Well, this is where the conversation gets even more interesting because
Okay.
we've been really diving deep into the internal combustion engine,
Right.
the heart of most cars on the road today.
Yeah.
But the automotive landscape, it's changing.
Yeah, everyone's talking about electric cars.
Exactly.
But those don't have, like, an engine, right?
Well, they have a motor,
Right.
but not an internal combustion engine in the traditional sense.
So does that mean everything we just talked about is obsolete?
Not at all.
Not at all.
There are millions of petrol and diesel cars on the road.
Yeah, that's true.
Understanding how they work is going to be important for a long time.
That's a good point.
And,
Yeah.
a lot of the principles behind the internal combustion engine,
Okay.
they still apply to other types of vehicles,
Okay.
even electric ones.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, like the way power is transferred
Right.
from the engine. Or in the case of an electric car, the electric motor
Okay.
to the wheels
Mm-hmm.
still involves the transmission.
Okay, the transmission.
Yeah.
That's a whole other...
A whole other ball game.
Yeah. We kind of glossed over that before.
We did.
But, so what does the transmission do? Because I know it's got gears.
Gears are key.
But I don't really know, like...
Yeah, it's a mystery to a lot of people.
Yeah, how it actually works.
Think about it like riding a bicycle.
Okay.
You use lower gears for starting uphill.
Right. For more power.
Exactly, or going slow.
Right.
And then you use higher gears when you want to go faster.
Once you've got momentum.
Exactly. And that's what the transmission in your car is doing.
Okay.
It's selecting the right gear for the job.
So how does it do that?
Well, you got a set of gears,
Okay.
different sizes.
Mm-hmm.
They're connected to the engine on one side, the wheels on the other.
Right. Yep.
And when you shift gears,
Yeah.
you're basically just choosing which gear combination is going to transfer that power
Okay.
from the engine to those wheels.
So in a manual car, that's what you're doing with the stick.
Exactly.
So you're in control.
Okay.
But in an automatic,
Yeah.
the car's making those decisions for you.
Interesting. So it's got like
There's
sensors
hydraulics, all sorts of fancy stuff.
to know like how fast you're going and
Exactly.
what gear to be in.
It figures it out, so you don't have to...
It's like the brain of the car almost.
In a way, yeah.
Wow. And then there's that thing, the differential.
Oh, the differential,
Which
which
I'm-
I often overlooked.
Yeah, I don't really know anything about it.
It's a clever little piece of engineering.
Okay.
that allows your car to turn smoothly.
Okay.
Here's the thing. When a car turns,
Yeah.
the wheels on the outside of the turn,
Okay.
they have to travel a longer distance.
Right, because it's a bigger circle. Exactly. Then the wheels on the inside.
Yeah.
And so if the wheels were locked together,
Yeah.
turning would be a very jerky, unpleasant, tire squealing experience.
Okay.
But the differential, it lets the wheels on either side spin at different speeds
Wow.
while still getting power from the engine.
Huh. I never even thought about that.
It's one of those things you don't think about until it goes wrong.
Right. It's amazing how much goes into making something that seems so simple.
Absolutely. And speaking of things we don't always think about,
Yeah.
the unsung heroes of making your car move. Tires.
Right. They're just there.
They're just there.
But they're pretty important.
They're the single point of contact
Right.
between your car and the road.
It's true.
Responsible for transmitting all those forces, acceleration, braking, turning.
Yeah, so it's not just about having enough tread to pass inspection.
That's part of it, sure.
Okay.
But tire pressure,
Yeah.
the type of tires you have for the season.
Right. Like snow tires.
Exactly.
All that.
It all makes a difference.
Wow. Well, I feel like I learned a lot today.
It's a lot to take in.
It really is.
Fascinating stuff.
Yeah. It really makes you appreciate everything that goes into designing and building a car.
Absolutely. It's a testament to human ingenuity.
It really is. And who knows what the future holds.
Who knows, right?
But for now, thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the car.
It's been a pleasure.
We'll see you next time.
See you next time.